As we look at our gospel today, and we see St. James, who is definitely feisty to read, he's talking about the conflicts within us, and he says, you covet but do not possess, you kill and envy and you cannot obtain, and then, you ask but do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. So as I was reading that and thinking about St. James and his wonderful insights into human nature and how they connect with prayer, I thought about how, the importance of planning out our salvation. They say one of the things that makes God laugh is to tell him your plans. So it's not necessarily true. I think we can make plans that are in accordance with God's will, but sometimes we're off because God knows lots of things that we don't. He knows all about the future, and he has a system of planning for us that's maybe different from what we have planned. Now, as you know, I was in the Air Force. My dad, he started out, he was in the Army. In World War II, he went to go fight against Rommel in the desert for a while there, and then he became part of the Army Air Corps. And then they decided to create something called the U.S. Air Force. So he got 2 discharges, one from the Army and one from the Air Force. And now Dad never saw any real intense fighting because he told me he had the advantage of knowing how to type. So he became valuable as a typist. So that, I think, might have saved his life and might have gave me mine. I don't know. But now his brother was in the middle of the worst of the worst. He was part of what later became known as Special Forces. I can't remember what they called it in World War II, and he was, apparently he went up against the Waffen-SS, who was the super bad Nazis. But he survived. He made it into his 80s. He's gone now. Everybody's gone. Now that my sister's gone, I'm the last one to go, I guess. I can't do my own funeral, but I've done everyone else's in the family. So when I was in the Air Force, we learned about the different Air Force parts. So you went to school, you went to ATC, Air Training Center. And then they had MAC, Military Airlift Command, which is basically the taxi for the Army. When the paratroopers jump out of the planes, it's not the Army Air Corps anymore, it's the U.S. Air Force. So now my plane was the A-10, the tank buster, and I was stationed at Myrtle Beach in the 80s, and we were part of Tactical Air Command. So Tactical Air Command had to do with the battle that might have been going on right there. Then there's a thing called Strategic Air Command. Those are the guys that deal with the scary nuclear weapons, the B-52s and intercontinental ballistic missiles. So I'm trying to make this a little bit of analogy to think about how we've got to think about our salvation. There's tactical, which is the battle that we might be in at the moment, the temptations we're dealing with. But then there's strategic, air command, strategic spiritual command, where we're looking at the long range. Now, sometimes there can be a little crossover probably. I remember, my dad gave me a miraculous medal, which led me to the Rosary in summer of 1977. Changed my whole life. It's the reason I became a priest. If you told me I was going to be a priest, I would have told you were out of your mind. So when I was 14. But, it took a while till I saw things God's way. And that's kind of what I think St. James is letting us know, is that there's stuff on God's planning, office of planning, his war room, or whatever you want to call it. God's working with our guardian angel, with the saints, with the Blessed Mother, and he's got a plan for us. And then we have our little spiritual plan that we work on, and we think, well, we should be working on this or that. And then, unfortunately, hell has the fallen angels, and they're working on a plan for us to get us to lose heaven. It's a frightening thought, but that's part of the reality. So one of the things I was thinking about was if we could try to think about maybe how God sees us and what his plan is for us. Because we go to God in prayer, we got our little list. Okay, God, I want this, I want that, whatever, And God pays attention. My sister was suffering pretty bad, and so I prayed to God. I said, Lord, if you're not going to cure her, will you just take her? And believe it or not, he was listening because she went about a week later. So I managed to give her the last rites, and 3 hours later, at the 11th hour, 11 o'clock Friday night, she went to the Lord. So we speak to the Lord, and he's always listening. Now, he may not always agree with what we're asking for, and we need to give him the benefit of a doubt. We may think we know better, but all of the knowing and all of the wisdom that we have comes from God. He's the source of intelligence and logic and wisdom. That's where we get it from. So we need to defer. That's why it's in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we got to let the Lord do his will because he knows what's best for us. So what's that joke? Man proposes and God disposes. So we got to allow that maybe if God doesn't give us exactly what we're asking for in prayer, maybe he's got a reason. Maybe we need to pray more. Maybe, because Bishop Sheen, I love Bishop Sheen, he used to talk about the 3 answers to prayer: yes, no, and wait. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between no and wait. But, there's a short-term plan, with the battle that we're in now for our soul, whatever it might be. And then there's the long-term strategic plan where God is trying to guide us to eternal salvation despite our occasional weakness and stupidity, making choices that make his work much harder. So as we go through life, we need to keep in mind that there's our desires and there's God's desires, and it's his kingdom come, his will be done, not ours. So we need to persevere even when we don't understand what God is doing. Even though we don't understand, why don't you answer this prayer, God, that I'm asking? It seems like a good thing. Maybe he wants us to pray more. Maybe he's got another deeper plan, and so it's important for us to try to trust in God even when we don't understand. So our spiritual life is involved in some tactical decisions and some strategic decisions, more long range. But the ultimate goal is to get us into heaven. Now, the enemy's going to try to wear us down, and he's going to try to get us distracted and confused and tired. I'm tired of confessing the same thing in confession. I'm tired of asking God for this, and it doesn't seem like he's paying any attention to me. Does he even know I exist? Of course he knows you exist. He's giving you existence, So it's important for us to recognize that we are in a spiritual battle. The enemy is going to throw obstacles in our way. Spiritual speed bumps, whatever you want to call it. And then it's going to shake us up sometimes. And sometimes there's some really bad ones that really shake us up. I mean, I've had a rough year, folks. I lost my brother and my sister and I had a heart attack all in 1 year. So God hit the smite button 3 times on me. So, what are you going to do? You just keep going. You trust in the Lord. Because ultimately, the stakes in this battle can't get any higher. You know how you have a game, a sports game, and if they lose, it's sad. You might lose $10, you made a wager, and you get depressed that your team lost. Well, this is much more significant, folks, because we're playing in this game for our eternal salvation. So if we win, we get to be with Jesus in paradise forever. But if we lose, well, nothing worse imaginable than going to the other place. And that's why, you're here in church today, and that's good, but you got to maintain a priority of God. That's why Jesus says, seek first the kingdom of heaven. I don't know what occupies your heart, your mind, your soul, your energy, your strength, your motivation, but the number one thing should be getting yourself and your soul and whoever else you have in your family to heaven. 100 years from now, everybody here is either going to be in heaven with Jesus forever and happy as can be, or we're going to be as miserable as can be for eternity in the other place. Something we don't even want to think about. But whatever's bothering you on a worldly level, maybe you got some physical ailment, maybe you got trouble at work or school, maybe there's this or that, minor. It'll be gone forever. You're not going to be in heaven thinking about whatever you might be thinking about now that's bugging you. It is short-term, temporary. And you might say, well, Father, it's been going on for 20 years. Well, compared to eternity, 20 years is short-term. Again, nothing more important in your life than serving the Lord and getting to heaven. I'll be happy to hear you tell me something else is more important after Mass and come up with it. I'm all ears. But I can't think of anything more important than getting to heaven and anything worse than not getting to heaven. So again, whatever your energy is going to, whatever your time, I got to do this, when's Father going to shut up? I got to get to Walmart, whatever. There's nothing more important than the service of the Lord and your salvation. So you need to think about it. You need to believe it, and you need to live it.